You're always behind. Your mind never rests. Doing more is failing. Every morning starts with a silent weight pressing against your chest. You wake up, check your phone, and before your feet even touch the floor, you're already losing. You're scanning emails, scrolling through social feeds, and tallying up the dozens of micro tasks you failed to finish yesterday. In the modern American hustle, we've been sold a lie. That if we just move faster, drink more caffeine, and sleep less, we will eventually catch up. But you haven't caught up, you've just gotten more exhausted. You're living in a state of high-functioning chaos. Your desk is a graveyard of half-finished projects. Your save-for-later list is a mile long, and your mental energy is leaking through 1,000 invisible cracks. This isn't just about a messy room or a crowded calendar. This is about a psychological pattern of reactive living, a state where you are no longer the pilot of your life, but a passenger in a vehicle that's spinning out of control. When your life is disorganized, you pay a hidden tax on every single action. You spend 20 minutes looking for a document. You spend an hour overthinking a simple email. You spend your entire weekend resting, but wake up Monday feeling like you've been in a fight. This audiobook is your exit strategy. This is not about buying a new planner or downloading another productivity app. It is a psychological masterclass in self-mastery. We are going to dismantle the survival mode that has become your default setting and replace it with a cinematic level of clarity and control. We are going to turn your life into a high-performance system that works for you even when you're tired. By the end of this journey, the noise will stop. The fog will lift. You will finally have the space to breathe, to think, and to build the life you actually want to live. Chapter 1: The Survival Trap. Moving from reaction to command, you feel like a firefighter. The fires never stop. And you're running out of water. Most people don't live their lives, they survive them. Imagine your typical Tuesday. You wake up to an alarm that feels like an attack. You spend the first 3 hours of your day responding to other people's emergencies, text messages, work pings, family demands. By lunchtime, you've used up 80% of your mental energy, but you haven't done a single thing that actually moves your life forward. You are busy, but you aren't productive. This is the survival trap. In psychology, this is known as a high-reactive state. When your environment and your schedule are disorganized, your brain's amygdala, the part responsible for the fight or flight response, is constantly triggered. You aren't thinking about your 5-year goals or your inner peace, you're just trying to make it to 5 p.m. without breaking down. The core problem isn't your workload, it's your lack of structure. Chaos is a thief. It steals your focus, it steals your confidence, and most importantly, it steals your decision capital. Every time you have to decide where your keys are, what to eat for lunch, or which task to start first, you are burning the premium fuel your brain needs for the big things. Most Americans are life managers. They manage the mess, they manage the stress, they manage the disappointment. But high achievers, the people who move through the world with a sense of calm authority, are life architects. An architect doesn't just show up to a construction site and start stacking bricks. They have a blueprint, they know where the load-bearing walls are, they understand the flow of the building. To escape the survival trap, you have to stop stacking bricks and start looking at the blueprint. Think about your current life as a physical space. If you walked into a kitchen where the floor was covered in grease, the sink was overflowing with dishes, and the stove was on fire, you wouldn't try to cook a 5-course gourmet meal. You'd clean the floor and put out the fire first. Yet we try to build successful lives on top of mental and environmental grease fires every single day. Organization is the act of putting out those fires permanently. It is the process of removing the friction between you and your potential. When your life is organized, you don't need more motivation to work out or start that side business. You just do it because the path is clear. There is no resistance. This is where the transformation begins. We have to shift your identity from the person who reacts to the person who commands. This starts with a brutal audit of your energy leaks. Where are you losing time? What recurring stresses keep showing up in your life like bad sequels? Is it the morning rush, the digital clutter, the unclear boundaries with your boss or your friends? True order is not about being rigid or boring. It is about creating a containment field for your life. When the edges of your life are firm, when your systems are in place, the center of your life can be fluid, creative, and spontaneous. You don't have to worry about the bills because the system handles them. You don't have to worry about your health because the habit is automated. Imagine the relief of waking up and knowing exactly what your day holds. Imagine the power of finishing your work and actually being done, not just physically away from the computer, but mentally free from the should-haves and could-haves. This first step is the hardest because it requires you to stop running. You have to stand still and admit that your current coping mechanisms aren't working. You aren't just busy, you are structurally disorganized, and that is okay, because structure can be built, clarity can be engineered. In the chapters to come, we are going to build your new foundation. We are going to look at the psychological mechanics of why we let clutter pile up, both in our drawers and in our minds. We are going to explore why doing more is actually a form of procrastination and how doing less with more intensity is the secret to real self-mastery. But for now, I want you to feel the weight of the survival trap. Feel how much energy it takes just to keep your head above water. Now realize that the shore is only a few yards away. You just have to stop splashing and start swimming with a plan. If you felt the weight of this survival mode, hit the like button and subscribe. This is the first step in reclaiming your life. Let's build your new structure together. But here is the truth that most productivity gurus won't tell you. You can't organize a life you haven't defined. You can have the most beautiful filing cabinet in the world, but if it's full of trash, it's still just a cabinet full of trash. Before we clean the space, we have to clean the vision. The chaos in your life is often a symptom of vague intentions. You say you want to be successful, but what does that look like on a Tuesday at 2 p.m.? You say you want peace, but your actions invite noise. In the next chapter, we are going to address the mental fog that keeps you stuck. We are going to learn how to master the art of radical clarity, the ability to look at 100 different options and know exactly which one matters. Because once you know what matters, the organization happens almost by itself. The junk falls away because it no longer fits the frame. You stop being a firefighter, you start being the architect. The fires are going to go out. The water is going to settle, and for the first time in a long time, you are going to be the one in control. Chapter 2, The Priority Fallacy: Why You Can't Organize Your Way Out of a Life You Hate. You're working hard, you're checking boxes, but you're still lost. You've spent years perfecting the art of looking busy. You have the color-coded calendars, the sleek notification settings, and a to-do list that could reach the moon. On paper, you are the definition of an organized American professional. Yet, every night when your head hits the pillow, there's a hollow echo in your chest. You've done 1,000 things, but you haven't done the one thing that matters. This is the priority fallacy. It's the psychological trap of believing that if you just arrange the clutter more efficiently, it will somehow stop being clutter. It's like rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic. The chairs look great, they're perfectly aligned, but the ship is still going down. In our culture, we treat busy as a badge of honor. If someone asks how you are, you say busy, and they nod in respect. But busy is often just a mask for unclear. We stay busy so we don't have to face the terrifying question, what am I actually doing with my life? We organize the mundane to avoid the meaningful. We spend 3 hours organizing our inbox because we're too scared to spend 1 hour writing the business plan that could change our tax bracket. In this chapter, we are going to strip away the illusion of effort. We are going to stop trying to control the wind and start setting your sail. We're going to find your North Star priority, the one thing that, when organized, makes everything else irrelevant. By the time we're done, you'll realize that true organization isn't about fitting more into your day. It's about having the courage to leave things out. Most people think the word priority means a list of things that are important. But here is the part nobody sees. Until the 1900s, the word priority didn't have a plural. You couldn't have priorities. You could only have a priority, the one thing that came first. When you tell yourself you have 5 priorities, you are lying to your brain. You are scattering your focus like a flashlight beam through a fog. A flashlight can show you the path, but it can't cut through steel. For that, you need a laser. Organization at its highest level is the process of turning your flashlight into a laser. Think about your life right now. You're likely trying to be the perfect employee, the perfect parent, the perfect friend, the fit person, and the person with a side hustle. You're trying to organize all these different versions of yourself into one 24-hour window. It's a recipe for a mental breakdown. This is where most people fail. They try to organize their entire life at once. They go to a big box store, buy 20 plastic bins, and spend a weekend labeling everything. By Wednesday, the bins are overflowing with junk again. Why? Because they organized the stuff, but they didn't organize the purpose. If you don't know what your life is for right now, any system you build will eventually collapse under the weight of more. More emails, more invitations, more opportunities that are actually just distractions in a suit. Let's look at a real-world scenario. Imagine a mid-level manager in Chicago named Mark. Mark is obsessed with productivity. He uses 3 different apps to track his time. He's organized, but Mark is miserable. Why? Because Mark's priority is moving up the corporate ladder, but his soul's desire is to be a landscape photographer. Every time Mark organizes his corporate spreadsheets, he is actually just getting better at a life he doesn't want. He is building a very efficient cage. Are you building an efficient cage? To break out, you need radical clarity. This isn't a vibe or a feeling. It's a cold, hard psychological audit. You have to ask yourself, if I could only move the needle in one area of my life this year and everything else had to stay exactly the same, which area would it be? Is it your health? Is it your bank account? Is it your relationship with your kids? The moment you pick one, something magical happens. The clutter in your life starts to reveal itself. Suddenly, that 9 p.m. Netflix binge doesn't just feel like relaxation, it feels like an obstacle. That urgent email from a toxic coworker doesn't feel like a priority, it feels like noise. But here's the truth that hurts. Choosing one priority means letting other things fail. This is the part they don't tell you in motivational videos. To be truly organized, you have to be okay with being disorganized in things that don't matter. You might have a messy guest room but a pristine business plan. You might have an unread inbox but a perfectly executed workout routine. In America, we are terrified of missing out. We want to have it all, but the person who has everything usually has no depth in anything. They are organized on the surface but hollow in the core. Think of your life as a garden. If you want the biggest, most beautiful roses in the neighborhood, you can't just water everything. You have to prune. You have to take a pair of shears and cut off the healthy, green buds that are sucking energy away from the prize-winning bloom. It feels wrong to cut something that is good, but good is the enemy of great. Your life is currently full of good things that are killing your great thing. This is the psychological pruning principle. You aren't organized because you're lazy, you're disorganized because you're holding onto too many good things. You're afraid that if you let go of that hobby, that social obligation, or that minor work project, you'll lose a part of yourself. But in reality, you're just freeing up the soil so your true priority can grow. Now, let's get practical. How do you apply this pruning principle to your Tuesday morning? It starts with the rule of 3. Most people start their day with a list of 20 tasks. By 10 a.m., they're overwhelmed. By 2 p.m., they're browsing Amazon. Instead, you need to identify the 3 non-negotiables. These are the 3 tasks that move your primary goal forward. Everything else is a bonus. If you get your 3 done, the day is a win. If you do 20 other things but miss those 3, the day is a loss. This creates a psychological shift. It moves you from a defensive posture trying to stop things from hitting you to an offensive posture. You are now the one choosing where your energy goes. This is the beginning of self-mastery. But there's a catch. The world hates an organized person with clear priorities. When you start saying no to the things that don't matter, people will get upset. Your boss might be annoyed that you didn't jump on a non-urgent Slack message in 3 seconds. Your friends might be hurt that you didn't join the happy hour. This is the social tax of clarity. Most people are so afraid of this tax that they stay disorganized just to keep everyone else happy. They live a life of structured people-pleasing. They are very organized at doing what others want them to do. Are you living for your own blueprint, or are you just a contractor building someone else's dream? Clarity is a lonely path at first, but as you stay the course, something happens. People start to respect your time because you respect your time. They see your progress. They see that while they are still spinning their wheels, you are moving blocks. This is the secret of the high-retention life. You stay focused on the story of your life. Every chapter should lead to the next. If a scene doesn't move the plot forward, an editor cuts it. You need to be the editor of your own existence. So, before we move into the mechanics of systems and habits in the next chapters, you have to do the work. You have to look at the mess and realize that 80% of it shouldn't be organized. It should be deleted. You don't need a better way to manage your distractions. You need a better reason to ignore them. The weight you're carrying isn't your responsibilities. It's the stuff you're holding onto because you're afraid to choose. Once you choose, the weight drops, the fog clears, and the path forward becomes so simple that it's almost scary. In the next chapter, we're going to build the automated engine, the systems that allow you to stay on this path without needing superhuman willpower. Because motivation is a feeling, but a system is a fact. And once you have your clarity, you need a facts-based life. Chapter 4, The invisible clutter mastering the architecture of your mind. Your head is screaming. The noise never stops. You can't think straight. You're lying in bed at 2 a.m. staring at the ceiling. Your room is dark, your house is quiet, and your phone is face down on the nightstand. On the surface, everything is peaceful, but inside your skull, it's a riot. Your brain is a browser with 47 tabs open, 3 of them are frozen, and there's music playing from an unknown source. You're replaying a conversation you had 3 days ago. You're worrying about a deadline that's 3 weeks away. You're trying to remember if you signed the permission slip for your kid or if you actually hit send on that high-stakes email. This is mental clutter, the invisible weight that is actually causing your exhaustion. Most people think that being organized means having a clean desk and a tidy closet. But you can live in a minimalist mansion and still be a disorganized wreck if your mind is a junkyard. We have been taught to treat our brains like storage units, but our brains were never designed to hold information, they were designed to process it. In this chapter, we are going to perform a digital reset on your consciousness. We're going to look at the psychological cost of open loops and why your brain is obsessed with the things you haven't done. I'm going to show you how to empty your mental hard drive so you can finally use your processor for what it was meant for: creativity, decision-making, and being present in the moment. The average American experiences more information in a single day than a person in the 1800s experienced in their entire lifetime. We are bombarded with data, requests, opinions, and alerts. Our brains are effectively overclocked, running at a speed they weren't built for. When your mind is cluttered, your IQ actually drops. Research shows that just knowing you have unread emails in your inbox can lower your effective IQ by 10 points. Why? Because a portion of your brain is constantly pinging that unfinished task. This is known in psychology as the Zeigarnik effect. It's the tendency of the human brain to remember uncompleted tasks more vividly than completed ones. Your brain is a protective parent. It doesn't want you to forget your responsibilities, so it keeps screaming them at you at the worst possible times, usually when you're trying to sleep or enjoy a meal with your family. But here's the secret that most people miss. Your brain cannot tell the difference between a major life crisis and buying milk. To your subconscious, an unfinished task is an unfinished task. If you don't have a system to capture these thoughts, your brain will treat them all as equally urgent. This leads to a state of chronic cognitive load, a feeling of being mentally full. Imagine trying to run a marathon while carrying 50 small pebbles in your pockets. None of the pebbles are heavy on their own, but together they change your gait, they slow you down, and they eventually make you want to quit. Most people are trying to run the marathon of life with 1,000 mental pebbles. To organize your mind, you must first learn the art of the external capture. This is the most fundamental rule of mental self-mastery. If it's in your head, it's in the wrong place. You need to create a trustworthy system outside of your brain. This could be a physical notebook, a digital app, or a voice memo system. The tool doesn't matter, the trust does. You must reach a point where, when a thought pops into your head, you record it immediately and your brain believes that you will deal with it. Only then will the pinging stop. But let's look at why this is so hard for the modern US audience. We live in a scroll culture. We consume endless streams of content, TikToks, Reels, news alerts, without ever closing the loop. We take in information, but we don't process it. We are mentally obese, but intellectually malnourished. This is where the real psychological damage happens. When you consume too much without a system to filter it, your mind becomes a waiting room for other people's ideas. You lose your ability to hear your own voice. You feel restless and anxious, but you don't know why. It's because your mental space has been invaded by 1,000 things that don't belong to you. Think about a project manager in Austin named Sarah. Sarah is highly successful. Her office is pristine, but Sarah feels like she's on the verge of a breakdown every single day. When I looked at her mental architecture, I found that she was carrying every single detail of her team's projects in her head. She was afraid that if she didn't think about them constantly, something would fail. Sarah wasn't disorganized, she was over-responsible. She was using her brain as a hard drive. We shifted Sarah to a capture and close system. Every time a worry popped up, she had to write it down and assign it a next action and a due date. Within 2 weeks, her anxiety dropped by 60%. Not because her work got easier, but because her brain finally felt safe enough to let go of the data. But there's another layer to mental clutter, the decision debt. Every time you say, "I'll think about that later," you are taking out a high-interest mental loan. You are choosing to carry that decision with you for hours, days, or weeks. Should I go to that wedding? Should I buy that new car? Should I have that difficult conversation with my partner? Indecision is the ultimate mental clutter. It's a frozen tab in your brain that is sucking up all your RAM. To clear your mind, you must become a decision closer. You don't always have to make the perfect choice, but you have to make a choice. Even deciding, "I will not think about this until Friday at 10 a.m. is a decision. It allows the loop to close. If you're realizing that your exhaustion is actually mental clutter, you're not alone. We're building the tools to clear that noise right now. Make sure to stay tuned as we move into Chapter 5, where we turn this internal order into external power. Now, let's talk about the digital hygiene required for a clean mind. Your brain is a pattern-matching machine. If you feed it chaos, it will find chaos. If you spend your first 30 minutes of the day looking at a screen full of notifications, you are training your brain to be reactive. You are inviting the world to dump its trash into your mental living room before you've even had your coffee. To organize your mind, you must guard the gates of attention. This means creating no-input zones, periods of time where no one can reach you, no one can influence you, and you aren't consuming anything. This is where quiet organization happens. In the silence, your brain has a chance to defragment, to move the data around, make connections, and clear out the garbage. Most people are terrified of the silence. They use podcasts, music, or TV to drown out the noise in their own heads. But you can't organize a room if you won't turn on the lights. Silence is the light. It shows you where the mental clutter is. Ask yourself, when was the last time you sat for 10 minutes with absolutely no stimulation? If that thought makes you uncomfortable, that's exactly why you need it. That discomfort is the feeling of your mental tabs trying to grab your attention. If you sit through it, eventually the tabs will close. The brain will settle. The static will turn into clarity. This is not meditation in the spiritual sense, it's mental maintenance in the practical sense. It's about giving your processor a break so it doesn't overheat. But here is the part nobody sees. Once your mind is organized, your physical world begins to organize itself automatically. Have you ever noticed that when you're stressed and overwhelmed, your house gets messy? And when you finally have a clear head, you suddenly find the energy to clean the kitchen and organize your desk. The physical mess is just a reflection of the mental mess. You cannot force an organized life from the outside in. You have to build it from the inside out. When your mind is clear, you see friction more easily. You notice that the way you've been doing your laundry is inefficient. You notice that your morning routine is a mess. You notice these things because you finally have the cognitive surplus to look at them. So, your challenge for this chapter is the 24-hour brain dump. Take a piece of paper, not a screen, a piece of paper. And for the next 24 hours, every time a thought, a worry, a task, or an "I should" pops into your head, write it down. Don't judge it, don't try to solve it, just get it out of the storage unit and onto the paper. At the end of the day, look at that list. That is the invisible weight you've been carrying. No wonder you're tired. In the next chapter, we are going to take this mental clarity and apply it to your physical environment. We're going to learn how to turn your home and your office into a support system that feeds your focus instead of draining it. But remember, a clean desk is useless if the person sitting at it is mentally overwhelmed. Close the loops, pay the decision debt, guard the gates. The silence isn't your enemy, it's your masterclass. Chapter 5. The silent architect designing a life that runs on autopilot. Your house is fighting you. It's winning every day, and you're paying the price. Imagine you're trying to lose weight, but your kitchen counter is covered in open boxes of cereal, bags of chips, and a jar of cookies. Every time you walk through that room to get a glass of water, your brain has to exert a tiny burst of willpower to say no to the junk. By the time 8 p.m. rolls around, your willpower battery is dead and you're elbow deep in the cookie jar. You think you failed because you lack discipline, but the truth is you failed because your environment was designed for you to fail. In the United States, we are masters of consumption clutter. We have houses full of gadgets we don't use, clothes that don't fit, and conveniences that actually make our lives harder. We treat our homes like storage units rather than sanctuaries. But here is the psychological reality. Your environment is the silent architect of your behavior. Every object in your field of vision is a cue that triggers a specific thought or action. If your workspace is a mess of tangled cords and old coffee mugs, your brain receives a cue that says this is a place of chaos. If your bedroom is full of laundry piles and glowing screens, your brain receives a cue that says this is a place of unrest. In this chapter, we are going to stop fighting your environment and start engineering it. We're going to look at the psychology of proxemics and how to turn your physical space into a high-performance partner that makes your best habits invisible and your worst habits impossible. There is a famous study in environmental psychology that found people eat more from a large bowl than a small one, even if they aren't hungry. They don't do it because they are greedy. They do it because the cue of the large bowl dictates the behavior. Most Americans are living in large bowl environments. Our houses are designed to encourage distraction, consumption, and procrastination. We have TVs as the focal point of our living rooms. We have chargers for our phones on every nightstand. We have junk drawers that represent the graveyard of our indecision. To master your life, you must become the lead designer of your surroundings. You have to realize that willpower is a terrible strategy for success. The highest performing people in the world, from Olympic athletes to Silicon Valley CEOs, don't rely on being tougher. They rely on having a better setup. Think of your environment as a selection menu. If you want to make better choices, you don't need a better brain. You need a better menu. Let's look at a real-life US scenario, the work-from-home struggle. Since 2020, millions of people have been working from their dining tables, their couches, or their bedrooms. Psychologically, this is a disaster. When you work where you sleep, your brain doesn't know when to switch off. The cues for relaxation, the bed, and the cues for stress, the laptop, are now in the same physical space. This leads to mental blur, that feeling where you're never fully working and never fully resting. To organize your life, you must create functional zones. Your brain needs clear boundaries. You need a deep work zone where only work happens. This doesn't have to be a whole office. It can be a specific chair or even a specific lamp you turn on only when you're being productive. But here's the part nobody sees. The ghost of the past. Most people's homes are filled with items that belong to a version of themselves that no longer exists. The guitar you haven't touched in 5 years. The skinny jeans from a decade ago. The textbooks from a career you've already left. These aren't just objects. They are emotional weight. Every time you see them, they trigger a microburst of guilt or regret. They remind you of who you should be or who you used to be. True organization requires an environmental audit. You must look at every object in your space and ask, does this support the person I am becoming today? If the answer is no, it is a vampire object. It is sucking your energy and your focus. In America, we are taught to save things just in case. But just in case is the mantra of the disorganized. It's a fear-based way of living. When you keep things you don't need, you are telling your subconscious that you don't trust the future to provide for you. You are clinging to the past out of anxiety. Let go of the someday items, clear the visual noise. If you're realizing that your environment is the one holding you back, you're ready for the next level. Subscribe and join this masterclass as we continue to rebuild your world from the ground up. Now, let's talk about visual friction. If you want to start a new habit like going to the gym at 6 a.m., you need to remove every possible friction point between your bed and the gym. This is called priming the environment. You don't just try to wake up and go. You set your gym clothes out. You put your water bottle in the car. You set the coffee to brew automatically. You are making the good choice, the path of least resistance. Conversely, if you want to stop a bad habit, you add visual friction. If you find yourself eating too much sugar, don't just try to have more self-control. Take the cookies, put them in an opaque container, and place that container on the highest shelf in the pantry. Make yourself get a stepladder to reach them. Most of the time, your brain's laziness will win out over your craving. This is the secret to passive discipline. You aren't being disciplined, you're just living in a room where it's hard to be undisciplined. But what about the digital environment? Your phone is the most influential room you spend time in. If your home screen is a chaotic mess of red notification bubbles, your brain is in a constant state of micro-stress. You are being cued to react to other people's agendas every time you look at the time. Organizing your digital environment is just as important as organizing your physical one. Delete the apps you don't use, turn off all non-human notifications. Move the time waster apps to the third or fourth screen so you have to consciously swipe to find them. Create a digital sanctuary. Think about a freelancer in Seattle named David. David felt constantly scattered. He had a beautiful home, but he was always behind on his projects. We looked at his office. It was full of distraction cues, a TV in the corner, a stack of mail on the desk, and a window that looked out onto a busy street. We didn't give David a new planner, we gave him a focus shield. We moved the TV out of the room, We bought a simple inbox tray for his mail so it wasn't scattered on his desk. We put a "Do Not Disturb" sign on his door. David's productivity didn't go up because he worked harder. It went up because he stopped having to fight his own room. The goal is to reach a state of environmental alignment. This is when your physical space feels like an extension of your intentions. When you walk into your kitchen, it's easy to eat healthy. When you sit at your desk, it's easy to focus. When you walk into your bedroom, it's easy to sleep. You are no longer the victim of your surroundings, you are the architect. But remember, this isn't a one-and-done project. Environment drifts, clutter creeps. You need a weekly reset, a 20-minute system where you return your environment to its base state. This isn't cleaning, it's recalibration. You are putting the cues back where they belong. As we move into the next chapter, we are going to look at the most precious resource you have to manage within this environment, your time. Because once the space is clear, you have to decide how to fill it. We're going to look at the energy-first approach to time management, the secret to doing more in 4 hours than most people do in 40. But for today, look around the room you're in right now. Find one distraction cue and remove it. Find one success cue and place it in your line of sight. Stop fighting the room. Let the room do the work for you. Chapter 6. The energy equation: why time management is a lie. You're out of time. Every hour feels like a race you're losing. But the clock isn't the problem. It's 3 p.m. on a Wednesday. You're sitting at your desk, staring at a spreadsheet or a blinking cursor, and you feel like your brain has turned into wet cement. You've had 3 cups of coffee, you've checked your to-do list a dozen times, and you know exactly what you should be doing. But you can't do it. Your eyes are heavy, your focus is shattered, and every tiny notification feels like a personal insult. So what do? If you're like most Americans, you try to power through. You lean on discipline. You force yourself to stay in that chair for another 3 hours, producing mediocre work at a snail's pace, only to finish the day feeling like a husk of a human being. This is the failure of traditional time management. We have been taught to manage our minutes, but we have never been taught to manage our energy. We treat our days like a factory assembly line, assuming that an hour at 8 a.m. is the same as an hour at 4 p.m. But you aren't a machine, you are a biological system. In this chapter, we are going to dismantle the hustle culture myth that says you need to be productive every waking second. We're going to look at the neuroarchitecture of your focus and why time management is actually a form of self-sabotage. I'm going to show you how to map your internal power grid so you can stop fighting your biology and start using it to achieve more in 4 hours than most people do in 40. Imagine you have a high-performance sports car. You wouldn't try to drive it across the country if the gas tank was empty, the oil was sludge, and the engine was overheating. You'd pull over, you'd refuel, you'd respect the machine. Yet, when it comes to your brain, the most complex and energy-hungry organ in the known universe, you expect it to run at 200 miles per hour, 16 hours a day without ever looking at the fuel gauge. Time is a fixed resource. Everyone gets 1,440 minutes a day, but energy is a variable resource. Your ability to think, to lead, to create, and to resist temptation fluctuates wildly throughout those minutes. If you try to do deep work, the kind of work that requires intense cognitive focus, when your energy is at 10%, you aren't being disciplined. You're being inefficient. In psychology, this is known as decision fatigue and cognitive depletion. Every choice you make, from what socks to wear to how to phrase a difficult email, drains a bit of your mental battery. By the time the 3 p.m. slump hits, your battery isn't just low, it's exhausted. But here is the part nobody sees. Most people spend their highest energy hours on their lowest value tasks. Think about your typical morning. You wake up with a relatively fresh brain. Your cognitive battery is at its peak. And what do most people do? They spend those first 2 golden hours checking emails, scrolling news feeds, and responding to urgent but unimportant pings. They use their premium fuel to do utility work. By the time they actually sit down to do the work that moves their career or their life forward, they're running on fumes. Let's look at a real-life scenario. Meet Jason, a software engineer in Seattle. Jason is a self-proclaimed productivity nerd. He has a rigid schedule. He blocks out 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. for work, but Jason noticed a pattern. He would spend the morning doing admin stuff, meetings and emails, and try to do his complex coding in the afternoon. The result? Jason was miserable. He was making mistakes, his code was buggy, and he was working until 9 p.m. just to catch up. We changed one thing for Jason. We moved his deep work to 7 a.m. before he opened his email, before he talked to anyone. He coded for 3 hours when his brain was sharpest. Then he used his afternoon slump to handle meetings and emails, tasks that required social energy but very little deep logic. Jason didn't gain more time, he just aligned his tasks with his internal power grid. Within a month, he was getting more done in 5 hours than he previously did in 10. He regained his evenings. He regained his sanity. This is the energy mapping system. To organize your life, you must first identify your peak hours. Are you a lark, a morning person, or an owl, a night person? Research into chronotypes shows that our biological clocks are largely genetic. You can't discipline yourself out of your biology. If you're a night owl trying to do your most important work at 6 a.m. because some morning routine guru told you to, you're fighting an uphill battle. Stop trying to be someone else's version of productive. But here is where most people fail. They don't account for transition costs. In the American workplace, we are obsessed with multitasking. We jump from a phone call to an email to a report and back to a Slack message. We think we're being fast. But every time you switch tasks, your brain has to load a new set of rules and context. This is called attention residue. A part of your brain is still thinking about that last email while you're trying to focus on the new report. This switching is the fastest way to drain your battery. It's like stopping and starting a car in heavy traffic. You burn 10 times more fuel than if you were cruising at a steady speed on the highway. Organization isn't just about what you do, it's about how long you do it without interruption. To master your energy, you must learn the art of batching. You must protect your focus like it's your bank account. If someone walked up to you and asked for $100 every 10 minutes, you'd tell them to get lost. Yet you let people and apps steal your attention currency every 10 minutes without a second thought. But there's a hidden danger in energy management, the false peak. We often use caffeine or sugar to create a spike in energy when we're actually depleted. This is like taking out a high-interest payday loan on your future energy. You get a burst for an hour, but you pay for it with a 3-hour crash later. True organization is about sustainable output. It's about knowing when to push and, more importantly, when to pause. The highest performing people in the world, from pro athletes to CEOs, understand the ultradian rhythm. Your brain can only maintain high-level focus for about 90 to 120 minutes before it needs a break. If you push past that, your return on effort plummets. Real organization means scheduling your rest with as much discipline as your work. A rest isn't checking your phone. Checking your phone is just more input. It's more data for your brain to process. A real rest is the void, walking without headphones, staring out a window, or doing a 5-minute breathing exercise. This allows your mental cache to clear. It's the refresh button for your brain. Think about the American burnout epidemic. We are a nation of people who are always on but never present. We are tired not because we're doing too much, but because we're never truly off. If you want to be organized, you have to be comfortable with zero productivity zones. You have to have times in your day where you are unreachable and unproductive. This isn't laziness, it's resource management. You are saving your premium watts for the things that actually move the needle. So here is your energy audit for this chapter. For the next 3 days, don't change your schedule, just track how you feel. Every hour, give yourself a score from 1 to 10 on your mental clarity. You'll start to see a pattern. You'll see your green zone peak, your yellow zone middle, and your red zone cement brain. Once you see the pattern, move your most dreaded task, the one that requires the most brain power, into your green zone. Don't check your phone. Don't get settled, just sit down and do the hard thing first. And when you hit your red zone, stop trying to be a hero, do the laundry, clear your inbox, take a nap. Organization is the act of aligning your human doing with your human being. When you respect your biology, the struggle disappears. The procrastination you've been beating yourself up over isn't a character flaw, it's just your brain's way of saying it's out of gas. In the next chapter, we're going to take this energy and turn it into momentum. We're going to look at how to build atomic habits that make order the default setting of your life. We're going to move from managing energy to automating success. But for today, remember, you are not a clock, you are a battery. Stop watching the minutes, start watching the charge. Chapter 7. The identity anchor, building habits that don't require effort. You keep starting over. Every day one feels heavier. Here is the hidden trap. You know the Sunday night version of yourself. That version of you is a superhero. It's the version that cleans the entire house, preps 5 days of healthy meals, and swears that tomorrow the new life begins. You feel a rush of dopamine just thinking about how organized you're going to be. But then, Wednesday happens. You're tired, your boss is breathing down your neck, and your new life feels like a straitjacket. By Friday, the meal prep is rotting in the fridge and the old chaos has moved back in, bringing its luggage. This is the cycle of aspirational disorganization. You are trying to build a mansion of habits on a foundation of sand. You're trying to change your actions without changing your identity. In psychology, this is known as the identity gap. You are trying to do the things an organized person does while still believing deep down that you are just a messy person. In this chapter, we are going to stop the cycle of start, stop, repeat. We're going to look at why big changes fail and why boring consistency is the most powerful weapon in the American arsenal. I'm going to show you how to anchor your habits to your current life so they become automatic, invisible, and impossible to quit. We are going to move from trying to be organized to being the kind of person who is organized. If you want to move a giant boulder, you don't just run at it and hit it once with all your strength. You'll just break your shoulder. You use a lever, you use physics. In your life, systems and habits are the physics of success. Most people fail at organization because they make their habits too expensive. Every time you have to force yourself to do a complex 30-minute routine, you are paying a high price in willpower units. As we discussed in earlier chapters, those units are limited. If a habit is expensive, you will eventually stop buying it. The secret to a lifestyle of order is making your habits cheap. This is the 2-minute rule for a US audience. In a world of instant gratification, your brain hates long-term effort. To bypass your brain's procrastination alarm, you have to make the habit so small it's almost laughable. Don't organize the garage. Just put one tool away every time you walk through it. Don't do a deep clean of the kitchen. Just wipe the counter while the coffee is brewing. When a habit is that small, your identity doesn't feel threatened. You aren't rebuilding your life, you're just wiping a counter. But here is the part nobody sees. Once you start, the internal resistance vanishes. You've already crossed the threshold. The hardest part of any journey is the first 2 inches. But why does this lead to a total life transformation? It's because of identity anchoring. Think about a guy named Chris in suburban Ohio. Chris wants to be the organized dad. He tries to wake up at 4:30 a.m. to journal, meditate, and work out. He lasts 4 days. Then he hits snooze, feels like a failure, and gives up on everything for a month. We changed Chris's strategy. We told him to find one thing he already does every single day and anchor. For Chris, it was putting his keys on the hook when he got home from work. That was his anchor. We attached a new, tiny habit to it. When I hang up my keys, I will spend 60 seconds clearing the mail off the kitchen island. That's it, 60 seconds. Because it was attached to an anchor, he didn't have to remember to do it. The keys were the trigger. Within 2 weeks, Chris's kitchen was always clean. That small win started to change his internal narrative. He stopped saying, "I'm a mess," and started saying, "I'm the kind of guy who keeps the kitchen clear." That new identity then bled into his office, his car, and his finances. If you're tired of the start-stop cycle, you're in the right place. We are rebuilding your foundation, brick by tiny brick. Hit the like button if you're ready to stop the big change delusion and start the small win revolution. But here's the deeper psychological truth. Your environment is a physical manifestation of your habits. If your car is full of old coffee cups and receipts, it's not because you're busy. It's because you have a habit of deferred action. You tell yourself, "I'll take this in later." Every time you defer an action, you are training your brain to ignore the mess. You are training yourself to live in a state of low-level stress. To break this, you need the one-touch rule. This is a staple of high-retention lifestyle mastery. The rule is simple. If a task takes less than 2 minutes, do it now. Don't put the mail on the counter, sort it, and recycle the junk now. Don't put the dish in the sink, put it in the dishwasher now. When you follow the one-touch rule, clutter never has a chance to exist. You are handling the entropy of life in real time. This keeps your mental cache clear because there are no open loops sitting on your kitchen table or your desk. But let's look at the American obstacle to this. The all-or-nothing mindset. We are a culture of extremes. We want the total body transformation or the zero inbox. If we can't do it perfectly, we don't want to do it at all. This mindset is the graveyard of organization. Real order is messy, it's inconsistent, it's a work in progress. If you miss a day of your new habit, most people think the streak is broken and they should quit. But in the psychology of habit formation, missing one day has almost no impact on your long-term success. What kills you is missing 2 days. Missing 1 day is an accident. Missing 2 days is the start of a new habit of not doing it. This is the never miss twice rule. It's the safety net for your self-discipline. It allows you to be human while still remaining a professional in your own life. Think of your life as a high-performance engine. A lifestyle of organization isn't about running at 8,000 RPMs all the time. It's about the idling state. When you aren't working, when you aren't being productive, what is your default? Is your default chaos, or is your default order? By building these tiny, reliable habits, you are shifting your default setting. You are making it so that staying organized requires less energy than being messy. Eventually, you'll reach a point where you see a stray receipt on the floor and you pick it up automatically without even thinking. Not because you're a neat freak, but because your identity anchor has been set. But here is the part nobody sees. These small habits provide psychological safety. When your life is a mess, your brain feels like it's in a constant state of low-level emergency. You are always reacting. But when you have your daily anchors, the morning reset, the one-touch rule, the evening wind down, your nervous system calms down. You feel safe, and when you feel safe, you make better decisions, you are more creative, you are a better partner and a better leader. Organization is the silent support for your mental health. So your challenge for this chapter is to find your anchor. What is the one thing you do every day without fail? Making coffee, checking the mail, walking through the front door. Pick one tiny 2-minute organization habit and stack it onto that anchor. Don't try to change your whole life. Just change those 2 minutes. Because if you can master 2 minutes, you can master an hour. And if you can master an hour, you can master a day. In the next chapter, we are going to look at how to speed up your life by slowing down your decisions. We're going to look at the decision debt that is currently bankrupting your focus and how to become a rapid-fire architect of your own destiny. But for now, remember, you don't need a new you just need a new 2 minutes. The superhero version of you isn't the one who cleans the whole house on Sunday. The superhero is the one who puts the keys on the hook and spends 60 seconds clearing the mail on a rainy Tuesday when they're exhausted. That is where the battle is won. Chapter 8. The decision debt, breaking the cycle of overthinking. You're overthinking it. The clock is ticking. The choice is killing you. You're standing in the grocery store aisle staring at 15 different brands of olive oil. You're looking at the prices, the labels, the organic certifications. It's a $10 purchase, but you've been standing there for 5 minutes as if you're deciding the fate of a nation. Or maybe it's your inbox. You have an email from a client that requires a simple yes or no, but you've opened it 4 times today, read it, felt a pang of anxiety, and closed it again. I'll deal with it later, you tell yourself. But later is where your productivity goes to die. This is the psychological weight of decision debt. Every time you postpone a choice, no matter how small, you aren't saving time. You are taking out a high-interest loan on your mental energy. You are choosing to carry that open loop in the back of your mind for hours, days, or even weeks. And just like financial debt, these unmade decisions compound until you are mentally bankrupt, unable to focus on the big goals because you're drowning in a sea of small, unresolved choices. In this chapter, we are going to perform an internal audit of your decision-making process. We're going to look at why the modern American life is a choice trap and how analysis paralysis is actually a sophisticated form of self-sabotage. I'm going to show you how to become a rapid-fire architect. the kind of person who makes decisions with speed and confidence, freeing up the cognitive space you need to actually lead your life instead of just managing its details. Most people believe that the more information they have, the better their decisions will be. We live in the information age, after all. We have reviews, ratings, YouTube deep dives, and expert opinions at our fingertips. We think that if we just research a little longer, we can eliminate the risk of making a wrong choice. But in the world of psychology, this is known as the paradox of choice. Research shows that the more options we have, the more anxious we become and the less satisfied we are with the choice we finally make. When you have 2 options, the choice is easy. When you have 200, your brain freezes. You become so afraid of opportunity cost, the fear that by choosing one thing, you're missing out on something better, that you choose nothing. You stay in neutral. But staying in neutral is the most expensive choice you can make. Think about your decision battery we discussed in earlier chapters. Every "I'll decide later" is a parasitic drain on that battery. If you have 20 unmade decisions floating in your head, you are essentially running 20 background apps on your phone. It's no wonder your battery is dead by 2 p.m. But here is the part nobody sees. Indecision is a form of clutter. We often think of clutter as physical objects, piles of paper, messy drawers, overflowing closets. But mental clutter is far more dangerous. A messy room is a closed problem. You can see it and you can clean it. But an unmade decision is an active problem. It's an invisible ghost that follows you from room to room, whispering, "What about that email? What about that doctor's appointment? What about your retirement plan?" To organize your life, you must become a decision closer. The highest performing people in the world, CEOs, surgeons, special forces operators, don't necessarily make better decisions than you. They just make them faster. They understand that in most situations, the speed of the decision is more important than the perfection of the decision. Think about a woman named Elena in New York. Elena is a brilliant graphic designer, but she's constantly behind on her projects. When I looked at her workflow, the problem wasn't her talent, it was her decision threshold. Elena would spend 45 minutes choosing a font. She would spend 2 hours deciding which color of blue was just right. Elena was suffering from perfectionist paralysis. She felt that every micro-decision was a reflection of her worth as an artist. We shifted Elena to the 70% rule. This is a principle used by high-level leaders. If you have 70% of the information you need and you feel 70% confident, you make the call. You don't wait for 100%, because by the time you reach 100%, the opportunity has passed, or you've wasted 5 times more energy than the decision was worth. Elena started making font choices in 60 seconds. Was every choice perfect? Maybe not. But she started finishing her projects 3 days early. Her stress vanished. She realized that a good decision made today is worth 10 perfect decisions made 3 weeks too late. But this is where most people fail. They treat all decisions as equal. Your brain has a limited quota for decisions. If you spend that quota deciding what to wear in the morning or what to have for dinner, you won't have anything left for the big stuff, like how to pivot your career or how to fix your marriage. This is why people like Steve Jobs or Barack Obama famously wore the same thing every day. They weren't boring, they were protective architects. They automated the low-stakes decisions so they could save their decision capital for the high-stakes ones. You need to create a standard operating procedure for your life. Stop deciding things that can be pre-decided. Don't decide what to eat for lunch every day. Have 3 standard options and rotate them. Don't decide when to work out. Have a non-negotiable time on your calendar. Don't decide whether to save money. Set up an auto transfer. When you pre-decide, you are building a mental guardrail. You are taking the choice out of your hands and putting it into the hands of your system. This frees up a massive amount of RAM in your brain. But what about the big, scary decisions? The ones that actually matter? The reason we struggle with these is usually the fear of regret. We are terrified that we will make a choice and it will be the wrong one. But here is the secret of the architect mindset. There is rarely a wrong choice, only a new path. Most decisions in life are two-way doors. If you walk through and you don't like what you see, you can walk back out. You can change your mind, you can pivot, you can learn. The only one-way doors, decisions that are truly permanent, are very rare. When you realize that 99% of your life is a series of two-way doors, the pressure evaporates. You can decide faster because you know that action creates information. You can't know if a new job is right for you by thinking about it. You can only know by doing it. Indecision is an information vacuum. Action is a data generator. Retention strategy. This is the part nobody sees. Most people wait for clarity before they act. But clarity is a result of action, not a prerequisite for it. If you want to know which way to go, you have to start walking. Think about the mental load you are carrying right now. How much of it is just decision debt? How many emails are sitting there because you're not sure how to reply? How many items are in your Amazon cart? How many half-planned trips or projects are cluttering your headspace? Your task for this chapter is the decision blitz. Set a timer for 15 minutes. Go through your life, your physical space, your inbox, your to-do list, and make as many instant choices as possible. That shirt you haven't worn in 2 years, toss it or keep it. Decide now. That invitation you're maybe on, yes or no, decide now. That task you've been thinking about for a week, do it, delegate it, or delete it. Organization is not just about where things are, it's about where things are going. A life of order is a life of movement. When you decide fast, you move fast. When you move fast, you build momentum. And momentum is the ultimate cure for anxiety. In the next chapter, we are going to look at the social clutter, the commitments and relationships that are currently sucking your focus dry. We're going to learn how to apply this decision architecture to your calendar so you can protect your golden hours from the time vampires of the modern world. But for today, remember, indecision is the thief of your potential. Stop researching. Stop asking for opinions. Stop waiting for the perfect moment. Make a choice, close the loop, move forward. The wrong decision is almost always better than no decision because at least a wrong decision tells you where the right one is. Chapter 9, The Focus Guardian, Eliminating the Social Tax and Reclaiming Your Calendar. You say yes. You're slowly drowning. Everyone owns you. You're sitting in a meeting that has nothing to do with your job. Your phone is buzzing with urgent texts from a friend who only calls when they need a favor. Your calendar is a patchwork of obligations, social shoulds, and volunteer projects you don't even enjoy. You look at your schedule and realize that you haven't had an hour to yourself in 3 weeks. You are a high performer, but you feel like a servant to everyone else's agenda. This is the psychological weight of unfiltered commitments. Most people treat their time like an infinite resource, but it's actually the only truly finite thing you own. Every yes you give to something that doesn't matter is a no to your health, your dreams, and your sanity. You aren't busy, you're just spread so thin that you've become transparent. In this chapter, we are going to perform a social debridement. We're going to look at the people-pleasing reflex and why we are terrified of the word no. I'm going to show you how to apply the focus guardian mindset to your calendar so you can stop being a time vampire's favorite meal. We are going to learn how to set boundaries that don't just protect your schedule but protect your soul. In the American workforce, we are conditioned to believe that availability equals value. If you're the person who always picks up the phone, who always stays late, who always joins the quick brainstorming session, you're seen as a team player. But here is the part nobody tells you. The world doesn't reward team players with progress, it rewards them with more work. Organization is not just about how you arrange your tasks, it's about which tasks you allow into your life in the first place. If you have a perfectly organized closet but you keep buying clothes you don't wear, the closet will eventually burst. If you have a perfectly organized calendar but you keep accepting commitments you don't care about, your life will eventually break. To be organized, you must become a gatekeeper. Most people have no filter for their time. An invitation arrives for a wedding, a committee, a happy hour, and their brain immediately looks for an excuse to say yes. They ask, "Can I fit this in?" This is the wrong question. When you ask if you can fit it in, you are treating your life like a Tetris game, trying to squeeze every block into the gaps. The focus guardian asks a different question. Does this move the needle on my North Star? Think about a high-level executive in Atlanta named David. David was the yes man. He was on 3 boards, he coached his kids' soccer team, and he was the go-to guy for every crisis at the office. David was organized. He had a dedicated assistant just to manage the chaos. But David hadn't slept more than 5 hours a night in a year. His marriage was failing. His health was a disaster. David wasn't failing because he was lazy. He was failing because he was paying a social tax that he couldn't afford. The social tax is the energy you spend maintaining commitments that you only accepted to avoid a 3-second awkward conversation. You say yes because you don't want to seem rude or unproductive. But that 3-second yes turns into a 3-hour obligation that drains your decision capital and your emotional reserves. We put David on a commitment fast. For 30 days, he wasn't allowed to accept a new commitment without a 24-hour waiting period. He had to use a script. That sounds interesting. Let me check my priorities and get back to you. This 24-hour buffer is a psychological circuit breaker. It breaks the people-pleasing reflex. It gives your logical brain time to catch up with your social brain. When David actually looked at the invitations after 24 hours, he realized that 90% of them were low-value distractions. But here is the truth that most people are afraid of. When you start saying no, people will react. When you stop being the available person, people will try to guilt trip you. They'll say you've changed. They'll say you're not a team player. This is the social resistance that keeps most people disorganized. They would rather be overwhelmed and miserable than be disliked for 5 minutes. You have to decide. Are you a character in someone else's story, or are you the author of your own? If you're tired of living a life designed by everyone else, this is your wake-up call. Reclaiming your focus is the ultimate act of self-mastery. Make sure you're subscribed, because in the next chapters we're going to turn this reclaimed focus into real-world wealth and peace. To protect your focus, you need the hell yes or no rule. This is a filter used by some of the most successful people in the world. When a commitment comes your way, if your immediate reaction isn't hell yes, then the answer is a no. There is no maybe. Maybe is just a slow, painful no that you're too scared to say. Maybe is a mental loop that stays open, draining your energy until you finally cave or the opportunity passes. Think of your focus like a specially managed fund. You only have a certain amount of attention dollars to spend every day. If you spend those dollars on penny stocks, meaningless meetings, social obligations you don't enjoy, digital distractions, you won't have the capital to invest in the blue-chip opportunities that actually change your life. But what about your job? You can't just say no to your boss, right? This is a common American work myth. You don't have to say no to your boss, you have to say no to the chaos. When your boss gives you a new task that overflows your plate, don't just take it. Instead, show them your architect's blueprint. Say, I can absolutely do that. Here are the 3 high-priority projects I'm currently working on. Which one should I move to the back burner to make room for this? This is professional organization. You aren't being difficult. You're being transparent. You are forcing a decision about resource allocation. Most bosses will respect this because it shows that you value the quality of your output over the quantity of your busyness. But there is a deeper layer to this. Digital commitments. In the modern age, we have social obligations to people we don't even know. We feel a commitment to check our notifications, to reply to comments, to stay informed on the latest outrage. This is micro-commitment clutter. It's like having 100 tiny mosquitoes sucking a drop of blood every minute. You don't notice the first one, but by the end of the day, you're anemic. To organize your focus, you must unsubscribe from the world. Turn off 90% of your notifications. Unfollow people who make you feel anxious or inadequate. Delete the social debt of felt obligations to people who don't actually impact your life. True organization is the art of deletion. The lighter your social load, the faster you can move. Think about a backpacker. If they try to carry 50 pounds of stuff they might need, they'll barely make it 5 miles. But if they only carry the essentials, they can climb the mountain. Are you trying to climb your mountain with a backpack full of other people's expectations? Your task for this chapter is the commitment audit. Take your calendar for the last 2 weeks. Look at every single thing you did. Ask yourself, if I hadn't done this, would my life be worse today? For every no, highlight it. Now look at next week. Find 3 things on your calendar that are social taxes, things you only said yes to out of guilt or habit. And here is the hard part, cancel them. Send a polite, firm message. My priorities have shifted and I won't be able to make this work. Thank you for understanding. You will feel a wave of anxiety when you hit send. That is the feeling of your people-pleaser identity dying. Let it die. On the other side of that anxiety is space. And space is where order lives. When you have empty space on your calendar, you have the cognitive surplus to plan, to rest, and to move with intention. Organization is not about fitting it all in. It is about filtering it all out. In the next chapter, we are going to take this focus guardian energy and apply it to the most stressful area for many Americans, money. We're going to learn how to organize your finances so they become an engine of freedom instead of a chain of anxiety. But for today, remember, your no is the shield that protects your yes. If you don't protect your focus, nobody else will. The world will eat your time and leave you the crumbs. Stop being the available person. Start being the focused person. The author of the story doesn't ask for permission to end a chapter, they just turn the page. Chapter 10. Financial architecture, turning money from a chain into an engine your bank account, is a lie you're terrified to look. The numbers are winning. It's the middle of the month and you're standing in line at a coffee shop or a grocery store. You open your banking app, but you do it with a squint, as if looking at the balance too directly might cause it to drop. You have a rough idea of what's in there, but rough ideas are just polite names for financial chaos. You make decent money. You work hard, you have the American dream on credit. But every time you swipe that card, there is a microsecond of hesitation. A tiny voice in the back of your head asks, "Are we okay?" This is the psychological weight of financial fog. Most people think that money stress comes from not having enough money, but for a huge portion of the US population, the stress actually comes from a lack of order. You can earn 6 figures and still feel like you're drowning if you don't have a financial architecture. Without order, your money is like water in a leaky bucket. No matter how much you pour in, the bucket is always empty and the floor is always a mess. In this chapter, we are going to stop treating money like a math problem and start treating it like a psychological system. We're going to look at why we use spending as a dopamine band-aid for a life we haven't organized. I'm going to show you how to build a low-friction financial engine that runs in the background so you can stop managing money and start living life. We are going to turn your bank account into a source of power instead of a source of panic. In psychology, money is rarely about the paper or the digits. Money is a symbol for safety. When your finances are disorganized, your brain's survival centers are constantly on yellow alert. You feel a sense of general anxiety that you can't quite pin down. You think it's your job or your kids or the news, but often it's just the open loop of your unresolved debt and your unknown spending. Organization is the only cure for financial anxiety, but here is where most people fail. They try to use budgeting as a solution. Traditional budgeting is the willpower of the financial world. It requires you to track every penny, categorize every receipt, and constantly deny yourself pleasure. And just like the 5 a.m. workout routine we discussed earlier, traditional budgeting fails because it's too expensive for your brain to maintain. It creates too much friction. To organize your wealth, you don't need a budget. You need an architecture. An architect doesn't watch every brick being laid. They design a system where the bricks must go in the right place. To build your financial architecture, you must first face the mirror. Think about a guy named Michael in Phoenix. Michael is a sales rep making $120,000 a year. He has a nice truck, a nice house, and a massive amount of secret stress. Michael hadn't looked at his credit card statements in 6 months. He was ostriching, burying his head in the sand and hoping the predators would go away. The first step of organization is the data dump. We sat Michael down and made him list every single recurring expense, every debt, and every dollar of interest he was paying. It was painful. Michael felt a deep sense of shame. But as he looked at the numbers, something strange happened. His anxiety started to decrease. The unknown is always scarier than the known. Once Michael knew exactly how much he owed and where his money was going, the open loop in his brain closed. He no longer had to worry because he now had data. You cannot organize what you refuse to measure, but knowing the numbers is only 10% of the battle. The other 90% is automation. If you're realizing that your financial stress is actually a lack of system, you're ready for the next level. Subscribe and join the community of people who are building a life of command. Let's move from panic to power together. To make financial order sustainable, you have to take you out of the equation. You are the weakest link in your financial system. Your emotions, your hunger, your stress levels, all of these things lead to impulse spending. You need to build a 3-bucket system. 1. The survival bucket. This is for your rent, utilities, and groceries. This should be automated. 2. The growth bucket. This is for your investments and debt repayment. This should be automated. 3. The freedom bucket. This is for your guilt-free spending. This is the money you use to enjoy your life. Most people try to do this manually every month. They get their paycheck, pay their bills, and then see what's left to save. This is reverse architecture. By the time you get to the saving part, the money is gone. A financial architect pays the growth bucket first. You set up an automatic transfer the day your paycheck hits. You make it invisible. If you don't see the money in your checking account, you won't spend it. You adapt your lifestyle to whatever is left in the survival and freedom buckets. This is the friction engineering we talked about in Chapter 3. You are adding friction to spending and removing friction from saving. But there is a deeper layer to financial order: values-based spending. In America, we are bombarded with lifestyle creep. As soon as we get a raise, we buy a bigger house or a newer car. We organize our money around status rather than values. This is why so many successful people feel like they're on a treadmill. They are working harder to pay for things they don't even like, to impress people they don't even know. To have an organized financial life, you must align your money with your North Star from Chapter 2. If your North Star is family time, why are you spending $800 a month on a car payment that requires you to work 10 hours of overtime? If your North Star is travel, why is your house full of expensive gadgets you never use? When your money is misaligned, it feels disorganized. Even if you have $1 million, if it's being spent on things that don't match your values, you will feel a sense of financial chaos. Organization is the act of choosing. Think of your money as stored energy. Every dollar represents an hour of your life you traded away. When you spend money on junk, you are essentially throwing away an hour of your life. When you organize your money around your values, you are buying back your future. But here's the part nobody sees: the clutter of debt. Debt is negative organization. It is a commitment you made in the past that is stealing from your future. Every debt you have is an open loop that drains your decision capital. To be truly organized, you must become debt-averse. You must view debt not as a tool, but as a weight. When Michael in Phoenix started his debt snowball, he didn't just feel wealthier, he felt lighter. His brain had more space to think. He became a better employee because he wasn't working for the bank anymore, he was working for himself. That shift in power dynamics is the ultimate result of financial order. Retention strategy, this is the secret. Most people think they need more money to be happy. They actually just need more control over the money they already have. Control is the source of calm. So your task for this chapter is the financial audit. Don't buy a spreadsheet. Don't download an app, just take a piece of paper and write down 3 numbers. 1. Exactly how much came in last month. 2. Exactly how much went out. 3. The total amount of decision debt, consumer debt you are carrying. Once those numbers are on paper, they lose their power over you. They are just data. Then pick one: micro-automation. Set up a $20 weekly transfer to a savings account or a debt payment. Make it invisible. Financial order isn't about being a miser. It's about being a master. It's about ensuring that your money is working as hard for you as you are for it. When your finances are organized, you can breathe. You can take risks. You can say no to a toxic job because you have a freedom fund. Organization is the ultimate insurance policy for your life. In the next chapter, we are going to take this sense of internal power and apply it to your relationships. We're going to learn how to set emotional boundaries so your social life supports your order instead of undermining it. But for today, remember, vagueness is the enemy of wealth. Stop squinting at the app, look at the numbers, build the engine. $1 in a system is worth $10 in a mess. Chapter 11, The Relational Filter, protecting your peace from social entropy. You're always tired. People keep taking. You're the part that's broken. You pride yourself on being the reliable one. You're the person everyone calls when their life is falling apart, when they need a last-minute favor, or when they just need to vent for 2 hours about a problem they have no intention of solving. You listen, you help, and you give. But while you're busy being the anchor for everyone else, your own ship is taking on water. You're so busy managing other people's emotional clutter that you have no energy left to organize your own. This is the psychological tax of relational chaos. Most people think organization is just about desks and bank accounts, but your relationships are the primary environment you live in. If that environment is full of emotional vampires, time thieves, and boundary crossers, no amount of productivity hacks will save you. You are suffering from relational leakage, a state where your energy is being siphoned off by people who haven't earned a seat at your table. In this chapter, we are going to perform a social audit. We're going to look at the niceness trap and why your lack of boundaries is actually a form of self-sabotage. I'm going to show you how to build a relational system that protects your high-value energy while still allowing you to be a kind, supportive person. We are going to stop letting the world use your kindness as a doormat and start building the walls that keep your North Star safe. In the American social landscape, we have been conditioned to believe that boundaries are mean. We think that saying no to a friend or setting a limit with a family member is a sign of coldness. But in the world of psychology and self-mastery, boundaries are the ultimate act of love, both for yourself and for the other person. Think about a house. A house without walls isn't welcoming, it's a ruin. It can't protect the people inside from the wind, the rain, or the intruders. Walls are what make a house a home. Boundaries are what make a person an individual. When your relational life is disorganized, you have no property lines. You feel responsible for things that aren't yours to carry. You feel guilty when someone else is sad. You feel obligated to solve problems you didn't create. This is emotional overextension, and it is the fastest route to burnout. To organize your life, you must organize your inner circle. But here is the part nobody sees. We often use relational chaos as a distraction. It's easier to spend 3 hours helping a friend through a crisis they've had 10 times before than it is to sit in silence and work on your own difficult goals. We organize other people's lives to avoid the discomfort of organizing our own. Think about a woman named Sarah in Chicago. Sarah was a high-level marketing executive. She was brilliant, organized, and efficient until 5 p.m. After work, Sarah's life was a mess. She was the emotional dumping ground for her sisters, her college roommates, and her toxic ex-boyfriend. They would call and Sarah would answer. They would complain and Sarah would console. Sarah felt needed, but she also felt empty. She was so busy being the solution for everyone else that she was failing at her own life. Her apartment was a wreck, her finances were neglected, and she was 20 pounds overweight because she didn't have time to cook healthy meals. Sarah's problem wasn't a lack of time, it was a lack of relational architecture. We put Sarah on a relational budget. Just like the 3-bucket system for money, we created 3 buckets for her people. 1, the core, the 2 or 3 people who truly support her and deserve her premium energy. 2, the community, friends and family who she enjoys but who don't get unlimited access. 3, the noise, acquaintances, toxic friends and energy vampires. Sarah had been giving core-level energy to noise-level people. If you're realizing that your self-improvement is being held back by other improvement, it's time to recalibrate. Subscribe and hit the notification bell. We're building a life of total command, and that starts with who you let into your head. To fix this, Sarah had to learn the scripted no. Most people are terrified of the no because they don't know how to say it without sounding like a villain. But a professional architect doesn't need to be mean, they just need to be firm. Sarah started using a simple phrase, "I'd love to help /chat, but I don't have the bandwidth right now." Let's check and insert a time that works for you. The word bandwidth is a powerful psychological tool. It frames your energy as a finite resource, which it is. It's not about not wanting to help. It's about not having the supply. When Sarah started setting these boundaries, something predictable happened. The noise people got angry. They tried to guilt trip her. They called her selfish. But the core people, they respected her even more. They saw that she was taking her life seriously, and it inspired them to do the same. This is the social entropy of a disorganized life. If you don't set the standards for your relationships, they will naturally move toward chaos. People will take as much as you are willing to give. If you have no operating hours, they will call at midnight. If you have no off-limit topics, they will dump their trauma on you while you're trying to work. You are the environment designer of your social world. But let's look at a deeper, more subtle form of relational disorganization. The digital tether. In America, we are expected to be reachable 24/7. We feel a micro-stress every time our phone pings. We feel obligated to reply to a text within 5 minutes. This is relational clutter at its worst. It fragments your focus and prevents deep work and deep rest. To organize your relationships, you must batch your social interactions. You don't have to answer the phone just because it's ringing. You don't have to reply to a non-urgent text in the middle of your focus block. You can and should put your phone on Do Not Disturb after 8 p.m. Your availability is not your value. Your presence is your value. And you cannot be present if you are being pushed and pulled by a dozen different digital threads. But what about family? What about the people you have to love? This is where relational organization gets difficult. You can't delete a parent or a sibling as easily as a toxic friend, but you can organize the terms of engagement. If a certain family member always brings up topics that drain you, you can say, "I'm not going to talk about politics / my weight / my ex today. If that's what you want to talk about, I'm going to hang up / leave." This isn't controlling them, it's controlling the environment. You are deciding what kind of relational air you are willing to breathe. If the air is toxic, you leave the room. Here is the part nobody sees. When you organize your relationships, you actually become a better friend and partner. When you aren't resentful, when you aren't exhausted, and when you aren't spreading yourself thin, you can actually show up for the people who matter. You can listen with 100% of your heart because the other 90% of your heart isn't being used to manage noise. True organization creates depth. So, your task for this chapter is the relational audit. Think about the 5 people you spend the most time with, including digital time. 1. Does this person add order or chaos to my life? 2. Does this person respect my North Star? 3. Am I giving them more bandwidth than they've earned? Then pick one relational boundary to set this week. It doesn't have to be a big confrontation. It can be as simple as, I'm turning my phone off at 9 p.m. to focus on my sleep. Or, I can't do favors on the weekend anymore. That's my family time. Watch how you feel when you set that boundary. You'll feel a spike of guilt. That's your old people-pleasing identity trying to survive. Sit with it. Let it pass. On the other side of that guilt is power. In the next chapter, we are going to look at what happens when things break. We're going to learn how to restore order after a crisis, a failure, or a period of total chaos. We're going to learn the art of the resilient reset, the ability to fall off the horse and get back on without the self-criticism that usually kills our progress. But for today, remember, you cannot build a masterpiece in a room full of people who are trying to steal your paint. Guard the gate, protect the bandwidth, choose the core. An organized life is a life where you are the filter, not the sponge. Chapter 12. The resilient reset, navigating the mess without the shame you failed. The streak is broken. Now you want to quit. You had it all figured out. For 2 weeks, you were the version of yourself you've always wanted to be. Your morning routine was a masterpiece. Your desk was pristine. You were meal prepping. Your inbox was at 0, and you were actually sleeping 8 hours a night. You felt invincible. Then life happened. A deadline moved up. A pipe leaked in the basement. You had one bad night of sleep, and like a row of falling dominoes, your systems collapsed. Now it's Tuesday afternoon. There are 3 days of mail on the counter. You haven't looked at your calendar in 48 hours. You feel like a fraud. That heavy, familiar voice in your head is whispering, "See, you can't handle this. You're just a messy person playing dress-up." This is the most dangerous moment in the journey of self-mastery. It's not the mess that stops you, it's the shame of the mess. Most people believe that being organized means never falling off the wagon. But in the world of high-performance psychology, being organized means knowing exactly how to get back on. In this chapter, we are going to dismantle the all-or-nothing mindset that keeps 95% of Americans stuck in a cycle of perfect for a week, mess for a month. I'm going to show you how to perform a resilient reset, the ability to restore order in 5 minutes without a single ounce of self-criticism. In behavioral psychology, there is a phenomenon known as the what the hell effect. It usually happens with dieting. You're eating clean, but then you have one small cookie. Your brain says, well, I already ruined the day, what the hell? I might as well eat the whole box and start again on Monday. We do the exact same thing with our time and our space. We miss one morning of our routine and we decide the whole week is a wash. We let one pile of laundry stay on the chair, and by Thursday, the chair has disappeared under a mountain of clothes. We treat our systems like glass ornaments. We think that if they get one tiny crack, they're ruined, and we should just smash them on the floor. But a master architect doesn't build with glass, they build with steel. Steel is flexible. It's designed to bend under the weight of a storm and then return to its original shape. To live a truly organized life, your identity cannot be the person who is perfect. Your identity must be the person who resets. Think about a high-performance athlete like a quarterback in the NFL. If they throw an interception in the first quarter, they don't walk off the field and quit the season. They don't spend the next 3 plays thinking about how bad they are. They have a short memory. They perform a reset. They focus on the next snap. Most people have a long memory for their failures and a short memory for their successes. They carry the weight of yesterday's mess into today, and it's so heavy that they can't move forward. To break this, you need the 5-minute reset protocol. When you realize you've fallen off track, when you see the clutter, the unread emails, and the missed habits, you don't need a big clean. You need a micro-entry. You need to find the smallest possible action that signals to your brain. We are back in command. Clear 1 square foot of your desk. Delete 5 junk emails. Put away 3 items on the kitchen counter. This isn't about getting it all done. It's about restoring the signal. You are sending a message to your nervous system that the emergency is over. You are reclaiming your territory from the chaos. But let's look at why the reset is so hard for the US audience. We are a comparison culture. We scroll through Instagram and see aesthetic homes and perfect productivity influencers. We think that's the standard. We think that if our lives don't look like a curated photo every day, we are failing. But aesthetic is a lie. Order is a practice. The person you admire for being so organized isn't someone who never has a mess. They are simply someone who has a shorter gap between the mess and the reset. An amateur waits for a fresh start, a new month, a new week, or a clean slate. A pro understands that every minute is a fresh start. Think about a guy named Marcus in Atlanta. Marcus was a corporate lawyer and a father of 3. He was the king of the Sunday night reset. Every Sunday, he would spend 5 hours cleaning and planning. By Wednesday, his life was back in total chaos. Marcus felt like he was fighting a losing battle. The problem was that Marcus's reset was too expensive. It took too much energy, so he could only do it once a week. He was living in order for 2 days and chaos for 5. We changed Marcus's approach to continuous maintenance. We taught him that his systems weren't a destination. They were a maintenance schedule. Instead of a 5-hour Sunday reset, we gave him a 10-minute evening triage. Every night at 9 p.m., no matter how tired he was, Marcus had to do 3 things. 1. Clear the landing strip, the entryway where everyone drops their stuff. 2. Set 3 priorities for tomorrow. 3. Close the mental tabs by writing down his worries. This triage was so cheap that he could do it even on his worst days, and on the days he did miss it, we gave him the grace clause. If you've been trapped in the all-or-nothing cycle, it's time to give yourself the grace clause. Subscribe and join a community that values progress over perfection. Let's learn how to build the steel, not the glass. The grace clause is the psychological permission to be human. It's the realization that disorder is the natural state of the universe. In physics, this is called entropy. Things naturally fall apart, dust gathers, closets get messy, calendars fill up. Organization is not a one-time fix. It is a constant energy input against entropy. When you see a mess, it doesn't mean you've failed. It just means the universe is doing what the universe does. Your job is simply to provide the counter-energy. But here is the part that keeps most people stuck. The narrative of struggle. We tell ourselves stories like, "Why is this so hard for me?" or "I wish I didn't have to deal with this." This mental resistance makes the work of organization 10 times harder. It's like trying to clean a room while someone is screaming in your ear about how much they hate cleaning. To perform a resilient reset, you must learn the art of neutral observation. When you see a mess, look at it like a scientist looks at a lab. Oh, look at that, the kitchen is disorganized. Interesting, I wonder what system broke down. I'll spend 5 minutes fixing the surface level now and look at the blueprint later. No judgment, no shame. No should-haves, just data and action. Retention strategy, this is the secret of the high retention mindset. Most people burn out because their internal monologue is too toxic. If you can make your internal voice neutral, your energy will last twice as long. Another key to the resilient reset is the emergency routine. You need a minimalist version of your life for when things go wrong. If you usually work out for an hour, your emergency version is 10 push-ups. If you usually cook a healthy meal, your emergency version is a protein shake and a piece of fruit. If you usually have a 0 inbox, your emergency version is just checking for messages from your boss. The goal of the emergency routine is to keep the thread alive. As long as the thread is alive, you haven't stopped. You've just slowed down to navigate a rough patch. Think of your life as a long-form story. A good book has chapters where the hero is winning and chapters where the hero is struggling. The struggle doesn't mean the book is bad, it means the story is real. The mess in your life is just a transition scene. It's the part of the movie where the character is tired, but they're still moving toward the goal. So your task for this chapter is the next snap exercise. Think about the area of your life that feels the most disorganized right now, the area where you feel like you've failed. 1. Stop the all-or-nothing thinking. 2. Forgive yourself for the lapse. Literally say it out loud. I am human and entropy happened, it's fine. 3. Spend exactly 5 minutes, no more, restoring a small piece of order to that area. When the 5 minutes are up, walk away. Feel the reset. You are no longer in a mess, you are in a process. Organization is not the absence of chaos. It is the ability to walk through chaos and keep your internal compass pointed north. You don't need a perfect streak. You need perfect resilience. In the next chapter, we are going to look at how to lighten the load, the final stage of mastery where we remove the unnecessary weight you've been carrying so your reset becomes even easier. But for today, remember, the mess is the classroom. The reset is the graduation. Don't wait for Monday. Don't wait for a clean slate. The slate is as clean as you decide it is right now. Snap the ball, play the next play. The game isn't over until you quit. Chapter 13, The Weight of Excess, Why Having It All is Killing Your Peace. You're carrying too much. The weight is invisible. Dropping it is the only way up. Think about your life like a backpack you strap on every morning. When you first started out, it was light. You had energy, curiosity, and room to move. But over the years, you've been picking up stones. Some are physical, the clothes you don't wear, the gadgets you don't use, the boxes in the garage you haven't opened since 2018. Some are digital, the 4,000 unread emails, the 12 streaming subscriptions, the endless saved videos you'll never watch. And the heaviest stones are emotional, the guilt of a failed project, the obligation to attend events you hate, and the crushing expectation to keep up with the people on your social feed. You're exhausted not because you're weak, but because you're trying to run a marathon while carrying 100 pounds of stuff that doesn't even belong to you. In America, we are taught that more is the goal. More money, more possessions, more commitments, more influence. But in the world of high-performance psychology, more is often just a sophisticated form of clutter. It is the static that prevents you from hearing your own life. In this chapter, we are going to perform a radical weight shedding. We're going to look at the psychology of accumulation and why we are terrified to let go. I'm going to show you how to distinguish between tools and anchors. We are going to move from a life of managing excess to a life of intentional lightness. By the end of this, you won't just be organized. You will be free. Most people believe that to get organized, they need more storage. They go to the store and buy plastic bins, shelving units, and digital cloud space. They think that if they can just find a better place to put the excess, the stress will go away. But here is the part nobody sees. Every item you own owns a piece of you. Every physical object in your house is a mental ping. Your brain has to subconsciously track its location, its condition, and its utility. When you walk into a cluttered room, your brain is actually performing thousands of micro-calculations. That needs to be fixed. I should use that. I spent too much money on that. This is subconscious cognitive drain. You feel tired just being in your own home because your environment is constantly talking to you. To organize your life, you don't need a bigger bucket. You need to stop the overflow. In the US, we have an epidemic of storage unit culture. We have so much stuff we don't use that we pay a monthly fee to keep it in a metal box across town. We are literally paying a tax on indecision. We keep things because we might need them someday or because they cost a lot of money. But the real cost isn't the price tag. The real cost is the psychological real estate those items occupy in your mind. Think about a woman named Jennifer in suburban Virginia. Jennifer was a high achiever, but she felt suffocated. When I looked at her life, she had 3 different hobbies she hadn't touched in years: photography equipment, a high-end sewing machine, and a collection of vintage cookbooks. She felt guilty every time she saw them because they represented unfulfilled potential. These items weren't possessions, they were aspirational clutter. They were anchors to a version of Jennifer that no longer existed. We forced Jennifer to do a shedding session. We didn't ask, "Is this useful?" We asked, "Does this support the person you are becoming today?" If the answer was no, it had to go. Jennifer sold the gear and donated the books. She described the feeling afterward as taking a deep breath for the first time in a decade. This is the lightness principle. If you're starting to realize that your stuff is actually a set of chains, it's time to break them. Subscribe and hit that like button to join a movement of people who are choosing clarity over accumulation. We're building a life that feels as good on the inside as it looks on the outside. But let's talk about the weight you can't see. Mental and digital excess. In the digital age, we carry a virtual backpack that is even heavier than our physical one. We have subscription fatigue, dozens of monthly charges for services we barely use. We have information overload, newsletters we never read but feel obligated to keep. We have digital debt, the thousands of photos and files we're going to organize next weekend. Every unread notification is a micro-commitment. It's a tiny voice saying, "I'm waiting for you." To organize your life, you must become an essentialist. You must systematically unsubscribe from anything that isn't a tool. A tool is something that helps you do your work or brings you genuine, deep joy. Everything else is noise. Unsubscribe from the marketing emails that tempt you to spend money. Delete the apps that you only open when you're bored. Close the bank accounts and credit cards that you don't use. But this is where most people fail. They try to organize the noise instead of deleting it. They spend hours putting junk emails into folders. They spend a weekend organizing a closet full of clothes that don't fit. You cannot organize your way out of too much. You can only release your way out. Think of your life as a high-performance aircraft. To fly higher and faster, you have to be conscious of your gross weight. If the plane is too heavy, it can't lift off no matter how powerful the engine is. Most Americans are revving their engine, their hard work, their ambition to the red line, but they aren't going anywhere because they refuse to throw the cargo overboard. What is your cargo? Is it the ghost of your former self, the clothes and hobbies from a life you've outgrown? Is it social baggage, the friends who only bring drama and the events you attend out of a sense of should? Is it financial drag, the payments on a lifestyle you can't afford? The most organized people in the world are those who have the least to manage. When you have fewer things, you have fewer decisions. When you have fewer decisions, you have more energy. When you have more energy, you have more command. This is the final stage of the transformation. You've built the systems chapter 3, you've cleared the mind chapter 4, and you've set the boundaries chapter 11. Now you must lighten the ship. Your task for this chapter is the rule of 1 in, 5 out. For the next week, every time you bring something new into your life, a physical item, a new digital subscription, a new social commitment, you must remove 5 old ones. Buy a new shirt, donate 5 old ones. Sign up for a new newsletter, unsubscribe from 5 others. Accept a new meeting, cancel or delegate 5 hours of low-value work. This creates a negative pressure on your clutter. It forces you to realize that space is more valuable than stuff. Retention strategy. This is the part nobody sees. We think that having more makes us more secure, but in reality, needing less is the only true security. The person who needs the least is the hardest to control. As you shed the weight, you will feel a strange sensation, vulnerability. We use our stuff and our busyness as a shield. If we're always busy and our houses are always full, we don't have to face the quiet. But in the quiet, in the space, that's where the self-mastery happens. That's where you finally meet the person you were meant to be. Organization is not the art of fitting more in. It is the art of finding the core. In our final chapter, we are going to look at the long game, how to turn this organized, light, high-performance life into a default state. We're going to learn how to live in the center of the storm, where the world is still chaotic, but you remain perfectly still. But for today, remember, you weren't born to be a warehouse. You were born to be a light.